Imagine, it's June 1945. You've got victory marches in Moscow, the band's playing, flags everywhere. The defeat of Nazi Germany. Big celebration.
Right, a huge moment.
But then, behind the walls of prisons like Butyrki in Moscow, something much darker is happening for millions of Russians.
A completely different reality.
So today, we're doing a deep dive into, well, a really complex and often ignored part of World War II history. It's the story of the Soviet Union's own people labeled traitors.
Yeah, the returning prisoners of war, the émigrés.
And why the motherland they, fought for or loved suddenly saw them as enemies.
It's chilling.
Our source for this is Alexander Solzhenitsyn's massive work, The GULAG Archipelago. Specifically, we're digging into the chapter that spring.
A really powerful section.
And our mission here isn't just about the historical facts, is it? It's more about the human cost, how loyalty gets twisted, what state betrayal really looks like.
Exactly, understanding the human impact. So let's get into this. It's tough, but important.
Okay, so we start in spring 45. Victory parades outside. But inside Butyrki prison, Solzhenitsyn calls it a tedious prison spring, a spring of reckoning.
And what's immediately striking is just the sheer number of new prisoners flooding in, and who they were.
Right.
Mostly Russian POWs. He describes them like vast, dense gray shoals, like ocean herring, just waves of them.
Wow.
But it wasn't only POWs. It was basically anyone who'd been in Europe. Ostarbeiters, those forced laborers taken by the Germans.
Okay.
And even Red Army officers. Officers Stalin worried might bring back dangerous ideas, European freedom.
Yeah.
A bit like the fear around the Decembrists way back.
So this generation, born with the revolution, raised on slogans like, "We are always prepared."
The pioneer motto, yeah.
They suddenly find themselves disgraced, thrown in prison, essentially just for surviving the war.
Exactly. In disgrace only because we had survived. So Solzhenitsyn himself was shocked when he first saw them, these columns of returning POWs.
He describes them as grieving.
Yeah, the only people around who are grieving instead of celebrating. And then when he ends up in prison, too, he feels it's his duty to sort of share their burden. He talks about the conditions they endured, digging foxholes with mess tin lids, starvation, typhus, and this horrible realization, Soviet Russia has renounced her dying children.
It's brutal. And then there's this linguistic twist he points out. They're called traitors universally,
Right.
but not traitors to the motherland. The common phrase was traitors of the motherland. What's the deal with that subtle difference?
Well, it flips the whole thing, doesn't it? It begs the question, who actually did the betraying here? Solzhenitsyn's argument is clear. It was the calculating motherland that betrayed them. Not just once.
3 times.
3 times.
How?
First, he says, on the battlefield itself, through sheer ineptitude. He argues the government did everything to lose the war initially.
Like what?
Destroying fortifications, grounding the Air Force, taking apart tanks, removing good generals, telling armies not to fight back. He mentions P.G. Gorenko's work on this.
Okay, so that's the first betrayal. Incompetence leading to capture.
Then the second, abandoning them.
Yeah.
Just leaving them to die in German camps.
Oh.
Heartlessly betrayed.
Right.
And the third betrayal, maybe the cruelest, was unscrupulously luring them back home.
With those phrases like, "the motherland has forgiven you."
Exactly. The motherland calls you, all while setting a trap at the borders. Colonel General Golov was put in charge of, quote, swallowing them up.
That's staggering. Millions of people. Solzhenitsyn asks if Russia ever committed such a massive foul deed before.
Yeah, he gives examples of Stalin's blunders and the Vyazma meat grinder, with soldiers having hardly any rifles.
Sending thousands to die at Kirkstrait just for a good news report.
Senseless deaths.
Yeah.
But Stalin wasn't the traitor. The soldiers who survived his mistakes were. The logic is just completely inverted.
How do people even cope with that? There's that story of Leaf, the old professor in the prison cell.
Oh yeah, that's a telling anecdote.
He's apparently loudly declaring that people accused under Article 58.1b, the treason article, are traitors and shouldn't be forgiven.
And he's saying this to the men crammed in the cell with him, many accused under that very article.
It's bizarre. What does that show?
Solzhenitsyn calls it enforced ignorance. People could only grasp the part of the truth they directly experienced.
So if you knew you weren't a saboteur...
You might still believe the military guys deserve to be purged, or the engineers. Everyone thinks, okay, I'm innocent, but those other guys must be guilty, so the harsh methods are justified.
Even after they themselves are arrested.
Even then, this belief in enemies everywhere, wreckers, spies,
Yeah.
it just persisted.
Which leads Solzhenitsyn to ask that big question. How did Russia, supposedly the most just social system, produce millions of traitors from ordinary people?
Yeah, well, capitalist England only had one major traitor. Lord Haw-Haw was an A, or maybe his whore. Anyway, very few.
He asks point blank, maybe the problem is the system itself.
And it's a stark contrast to older Russian traditions, isn't it? That old proverb, the captive will cry out, but the dead man never. Traditionally, Russia had some compassion for prisoners. They helped POWs, even honored those who escaped or endured captivity.
But the Soviets threw that out.
Completely. The new rule was stark. Soviet soldiers cannot surrender. Period. If a German bullet doesn't get you, a Soviet one will if you're captured.
So if surrender means treason, what options did a captured soldier have? It sounds impossible.
Well, Solzhenitsyn says there was basically only one legally acceptable path: lie down and die.
Just die.
Yeah, if you couldn't die fighting, die in the camp. Then maybe you wouldn't be prosecuted. Any action was suspect.
What about escaping and trying to get back to Soviet lines?
That led straight to Seymur, the counterintelligence in prison.
Why?
The logic was, how did you escape when others didn't? Something's fishy. Suspicious. He slammed Sholokov's Fate of a Man for romanticizing this, making it seem easy to return.
Okay, so escape is out. What about joining partisans? Resistance?
That just delayed the inevitable trial and made you seem doubly dangerous because you'd been operating independently.
Helping the Germans in the camp, like being police.
Same charge, same sentence as joining the resistance, basically. Article 58.
Even skilled workers. Engineers.
Even brilliant ones like Semyonov and Kozlov. They refused offers to work for the Germans professionally. Later even helped capture Berlin. Still got 10 years in prison, 5 years silenced.
So that leaves, what, joining the German-sponsored units, like Vlasov's army.
For many, that became the path of desperation. Solzhenitsyn emphasizes, if you've never truly starved, you can't grasp the power of food, the illusion of freedom they offered.
A desperate choice.
Many apparently signed up thinking, okay, I'll do this just long enough to get sent back towards the Soviet side, then I'll immediately surrender to our guys. Naive, tragically naive.
And this ties into Stalin's paranoia, his spy mania.
Absolutely. He was convinced the country was crawling with spies. Thousands arrested Chinese, Koreans, anyone with foreign contact, anyone who looked suspicious.
So when these soldiers came back saying they'd voluntarily signed up for German spy schools.
Right. For the MGB, the state security, it was like, see, we told you. The great leader was right. It just confirmed their worldview.
It fed the machine.
Yeah. Come on in, you fools, they thought. The charges are all ready for you.
Let's talk about General Vlasov himself. Solzhenitsyn mentions those leaflets with his well-fed face. Who was he?
Well, his background was actually quite standard for the time. Humble beginnings, rose through the ranks, even advised Chiang Kai-shek in China.
And he was considered talented.
Apparently one of the best of the new generals who replaced those purged earlier. His division did well when others fell back. He led a key counterattack near Moscow.
But then
his second shock army got thrown into a hopeless situation trying to break the Leningrad blockade. Encircled, denied permission to retreat. They basically starved or were wiped out.
And Solzhenitsyn calls that
Stalin's treason. Vlasov was captured after that disaster.
And the ROA, the Russian Liberation Army he nominally led?
Mostly a German creation, at least initially. Lacked real Russian goals, seemed like propaganda. But other anti-Soviet groups did form organically from Soviet citizens.
Like who?
Lithuanians, Ukrainians in the SS Galician Division, Tatar units, Cossacks. Solzhenitsyn notes that Soviet policies, like closing mosques in Crimea for 20 years, definitely helped fuel some of that resentment.
But these weren't just reluctant collaborators. Some fought hard.
Oh, definitely. There's this raw desperation. He tells stories, a Russian fiercely defending a cellar near Orel against Soviet troops.
Oh.
Or two soldiers, one Soviet, one Vlasovite, in winter camo, realizing their enemies and just trying to beat each other to death with useless pistols because they wouldn't fire in the cold.
Primal hatred.
Exactly. Or a Vlasov soldier diving under a tank to avoid capture and hanging. It wasn't just, abstract treason. It was deep hatred of the Soviet regime. They knew absolutely no mercy awaited them.
So this complex force, the Vlasov army, what was their final act?
Ironically, perhaps, their last major action was turning against the Germans in Prague in April 45, helping Czech rebels, venting all that pent-up bitterness.
Which makes the Allied actions afterwards even more complicated. The Yalta Agreement.
Yes. Stipulated that Soviet citizens found in German zones should be returned to the USSR, whether they wanted to go or not.
Solzhenitsyn is critical of Churchill here.
Very. He describes Churchill tricking this large Cossack corps in Austria, 90,000 people, including families, making them give up their weapons, then handing them over to the Soviets, packed into Black Marias, the prison vans.
And he criticizes Roosevelt, too.
He sees it as consistent short-sightedness and stupidity by both leaders.
Yeah.
Handing over hundreds of thousands of armed Soviets who were determined not to go back.
Why did they do it?
The rationale given was it was the price for getting Stalin to promise to enter the war against Japan. But Solzhenitsyn points out the atom bomb was basically ready, making that promise less critical. He calls it a bankruptcy of political thought.
Let's shift to another group caught in this, the Russian émigrés, those who left after the revolution.
Right, another tragic story. So Solzhenitsyn paints their communities abroad as this vibrant, great spiritual world. Thinkers like Berdyaev, artists like Rachmaninoff, Nabokov.
But Soviet propaganda portrayed them differently.
Oh, yeah, as failures, degenerates, pianists in stinking little restaurants. Basically irrelevant corpses.
But the reality...
Many were fiercely anti-fascist. They fought for the Republicans in Spain, joined the French resistance. Their motto was often, it's still Russia, no matter what. They still felt connected.
So what happened when some tried to return or got swept up after the war?
Even those welcomed back, supposedly with honors and flowers, like in France, many were just raked in, arrested.
Just examples.
Captain Boris, Colonel Marushkin, old white army officers arrested in 45, tried under new laws for things they did back in the Civil War in 1919.
Decades later.
Yes, after living as civilians for years.
Mm-hmm.
He describes them as looking like mummies. It's absurd applying laws retroactively like that.
But not all were broken.
No, he contrasts them with Colonel Yovich, another émigré. Yovich seemed to fully expect arrest and execution, but maintained this incredible clarity and strength. He wasn't surprised by the betrayal.
Solzhenitsyn mentions a personal connection, too.
Yeah, an émigré friend, Igor Tronko. Talking with him and others made Solzhenitsyn realize how much Russia lost culturally when so many brilliant minds left. A whole stream of thought just cut off.
It really makes you think. Amidst all this horror in the prisons, was there any hope?
There was this desperate, universal craving for forgiveness, for mercy, and amnesty.
People clung to rumors.
Absolutely, sharing anecdotes, like one prisoner saying, "Send me anywhere, just let it be under the Soviet sun." There was this myth about Altai being a promised land, a place of peace.
A desperate hope.
And the authorities, the organs, apparently encouraged these rumors, subtly. Why? Because it weakened the prisoner's will to resist or despair.
Even though there hadn't been a real amnesty for political prisoners in ages.
Decades. Minor ones maybe, but nothing significant. Still, the hope persisted, fueled by the victory. Surely now, after winning the great patriotic war, there would be mercy.
So why wasn't there? Why no grand amnesty?
So Solzhenitsyn offers a chillingly practical reason. Simple economic calculation.
Meaning?
These prisoners weren't needed at the front anymore, but letting them go free, they were seen as dangerous in the rear. Where were they needed?
Slave labor.
Exactly, for huge remote construction projects. Places where, he says, not one brick would ever get laid without forced labor. The State Planning Commission literally told the MVD how many workers they needed.
Which translated into arrest quotas?
Precisely. The need for labor dictated the scale of arrests and imprisonment, not justice or mercy.
That leads to perhaps his most startling idea in this section. In war, not victories are blessed, but defeats.
Yeah, it's a really counterintuitive point.
Why would he say that? Defeats are good.
His argument is nuanced. He says governments need victories. Victories make them stronger, maybe more oppressive, wanting more victory.
No.
But the people, he argues, might actually benefit more from defeats. Because after a defeat, people crave freedom, and often, historically, they achieve it.
Can you give an example he uses?
He contrasts Russia's victory at Poltava against Sweden. He says it led to centuries of strain and lack of freedom for Russia, while defeated Sweden found peace and prosperity. Or the victory over Napoleon delayed freeing the serfs. But defeats Crimean War, Russo-Japanese War, World War I, those, he argues, led to reforms, freedom, even revolution.
It's a provocative thought. So back in Turkey, the prisoners are waiting for this amnesty.
Waiting desperately. There was even this prophecy someone wrote in so high up on a wall. Hurrah, amnesty on July 17th.
Prophet.
Turned out they were only off by one digit in the date.
Ah, so an amnesty did happen.
Yes, the great Stalinist amnesty of July 7th, 1945. But the reality was crushing.
How so?
He describes these scenes in the prison. A quiet bookkeeper is asked if he got the death penalty, and he just sort of blurts out, 5 years. thinking it's mercy. Another guy, radiating hope, gets told 15 years.
Oh, no.
The hope just gets obliterated. Solzhenitsyn uses the image of flaming pincers closing around their hearts. That little green twig they saw growing in the prison yard, symbolizing freedom. Just another illusion. No real mercy came for them.
We've covered some really heavy ground today. The betrayals, the lack of choices, the manipulation. It's a dark picture of that time.
It truly is. This deep dive really exposes the human cost when a system twists truth, twists loyalty, and turns on its own people so brutally.
It forces you to ask, who's really responsible in such a situation?
Yeah, who bears the blame when the state itself is the primary betrayer?
And that question Solzhenitsyn leaves us with feels central. Who is more to blame, those youths or the gray fatherland?
Makes you think, doesn't it? What happens to a society when survival becomes treason? When heroes are redefined as enemies?
What does loyalty even mean in that context?
It's a story that really pushes us to examine the relationship between individuals and the state, and I suppose the resilience of people facing just unimaginable circumstances.